Like I said, I come in the name of Jesus by the power of the Holy Spirit. I ain't playing with your ass. Don't call up and play with me.
This is the best French onion soup. We're trying one of the oldest pizzerias in
Carl, that would have broke your hand.
Bitch, I'm flowing straight from the survival scroll. Cut that bitch off. Next caller.
We wrote this 8 months ago, so the fact that the song is coming out right when the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl.
This is crazy, I ain't gonna lie.
Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well. Here I am.
Remember Han Solo?
That's pretty harsh, but in her defense, the paws do look like dog paws, so...
I come in the name of Jesus by the power of the Holy Spirit. Don't matter how you come, we gon' like it. If you down doing what I'm talking about doing. Lawyers, the fatherless and the widows are up out of them penitentiaries. If you down with that, you ain't down with that, shut your goddamn ass up.
The Raid films are personal favourites of mine. I'd probably go so far as to say that they're the greatest action films ever. There's no nonsense in them. They just set up a story and say, go. There's a gang in a high-rise tower block and police are sent in and action ensues. The fight choreography is of a ridiculous level. The use of space and blocking just keep the film in this constant state of forward motion, and everything in the frame becomes an object of interaction. It's like a fighting stage in a video game. And the fights are never over-edited. They're allowed the room to flow. And the camera work puts us in positions that make everything that bit more dynamic. I could explain in depth everything about these films, but they're just so good, they're fucking sick. They're the sickest, hardest films ever, and that's my analysis of them. They're the perfect example of mastery of multiple crafts. But ultimately, I just enjoy them because they're entertaining. The Raid films are works of art, but regardless of their cinematography or their narrative, watching them makes me feel something pleasurable on a completely superficial level. At least I think it's superficial. Watching people get their head kicked in for fun. And the reason I like The Raid is the same reason I like Resident Evil 4 and The Terminator and the World Cup and Jackass and Hoarders. Nonsense, animal, ooga booga voyeurism. But I do prefer Dickens and Michelangelo and Ozu. Those things are entertaining to me too. Technically speaking, I find them more entertaining. I mean, all of us talk about art and we try to break everything down and discuss how techniques are used and historical contexts of works. We go through the deep intellectualizing of a master's craft. But isn't the reason that we even engage with art and anything at all is because it activates some primal pleasure cortex within us? Are we ultimately just making and consuming all this stuff because we want to be entertained? Just look around. Entertainment is everywhere. I mean, if you're not being constantly entertained, what are you even doing with your life? Because clearly this is what we want as a society. We want our music concerts to be less about music and more of a social experience with light shows and special effects. And this is attributed to the high arts as well. Go to the Cannes Film Festival and, if you're lucky enough, your reward for making it through a foreign art film is that you get to see Snoop Dogg perform a DJ set. Entertainment is the democratic common denominator in which all of our art can reach the most people and thus the highest possible success. This is one way of looking at the world. I don't necessarily share it. When it comes to the entertainment factor, there are a bunch of films that would slide into a similar category as The Raid in that they're fun factories, and that's not a way to say anything disparaging about them at all. The Mad Max films, they aren't really about anything, not on that deep level. I mean, obviously you can delve into them and strip apart some thematics and deeper meanings, but if you were to approach it without those, would anything really be missing? Or would both approaches still result in people saying that the highlight of it is a guy playing a flame guitar? Of course, The Empire Strikes Back. It perfectly parallels resistances against the axes of power. I mean, it seems a perfect art piece to apply to society. whether it be Middle Eastern conflicts or how extremist religious beliefs manifest themselves into political paradigm shifts. Surely that's the reason why it was made, that's how we should read it. But is the art giving that to me, or am I just bringing that to it? And actually the only reason it exists is to entertain us, and there's nothing more than that. In fact, that's why we like it. If anything, I say this as a testament to these art pieces, that they're so universal that they can be applied to anything we choose, even though its aesthetic goal was to just entertain. But these things, they mean so much to us, to the point that we can sometimes become overwhelmed with emotion engaging with these works, when ultimately, it's a man beating people up, it's fast cars driving through the desert, it's laser fights in space. It's entertainment. So then, what's art? And why is it not entertaining? I've always envisioned films from a specific point of view. There's movies, and there's cinema. There's people that love movies. I've watched all the greats, never seen a thing in cinema, never seen a Robert Bresson film. Because Robert Bresson is cinema. He doesn't make movies, he makes films. The Dark Knight, Seven, Lord of the Rings, those are movies, anyone can watch them. Landscape in the Mist, Mirror, Jean Dielmont, don't think these are exactly the kind of works anyone is going to watch. But most people won't disagree with this. Do you think if I tell people to go watch fucking The Devil Probably, they're gonna go, oh yes mate, can't wait to watch that? Some might, you might. Because what is a movie? Where do people go to see movies? You see them in theatres. You watch them in your leisure time. Most people aren't going to sit down in their free time for a bit of relaxation and watch Robert Bresson. And yeah, why would they? I understand that. But this is why I distinguish between movies and cinema. Everything I just mentioned is of a certain quality in the same medium, but something differentiates the two. The deep pondering required by the latter is not an exercise that's at all viewed as entertaining, which is the reason why most people would ever even begin to entertain the idea of engaging with anything. Engagement is synonymous with entertainment. Entertainment with joy, joy with distraction. To not be reminded of your own consciousness and soul. I want to escape my own perspective without being unconscious, but I don't want to have to work for that. So, we made reality TV. We made YouTube Kids. We have shopping malls, we have mobile games, we have consumer goods. But we've accelerated this in the arts also by supplanting entertainment in wherever it will fit. Want to think about the show you're watching? No, you don't. You want several screens at once to satiate anything you feel at any point. Episode's over? Okay, quick, start the next one before consciousness returns to the viewer. You like that album? Okay, well, good news. That album is on a transmedia tirade in which we've created various forms of content so that engaging with the album now occurs on a social level, so that you can vicariously interact with a piece of art without having to actually interact with it or think upon it. All this is at the expense of a deeper thought process when engaging with art. I'm sure that plenty of people watching this right now may have read a book on cinema. You think the average person relates their experience of cinema with reading? I'm not going to no fucking library, I said I want to watch a film, mate. Balthazar, fuck that, James Bond, dickhead. However, there's a caveat to this. I've mentioned that The Godfather Part 1 and 2 are my favourite films of all time. Obviously, they're masterfully crafted, a pinnacle of artistry, and can comfortably stand alongside Dreyer and Bergman and all the masters of the medium. However, one of the undeniable benefits of The Godfather is that it appeals to the masses. It is very entertaining. So not only is it cinema, it's also a movie. How does it do that? Well, stories are entertaining, and The Godfather, when stripped of all those other dirty elements that we consider high art, is still a great story. And this has an interesting effect on the way that we perceive things. It's why Shakespeare is still and will always be now and forever the most important creation of humankind. Because what Shakespeare did at its core is teach us the literary value of character. Take everything away from Shakespeare, and what we will be left with are characters. Characters that are still relevant today, whose direct comparisons we see in our politics, our art, and our personal lives. Lady Macbeth, Falstaff, Hamlet, Mercutio. We aren't concerned about the society that creates the characters of Shakespeare in the same way that we aren't with the characters of The Godfather or any other story that possesses universality. Storytelling is a universal constant that human beings are drawn toward. Storytelling is insightful, it's a way of passing on knowledge. But when all we're left with is character and action, at its very core, storytelling is entertainment. And it is this, for whatever reason, that enthralls us. But then, to steamroll my own argument, allow me to introduce my second favourite film, Satan Tango. You want entertainment, ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your hats, because we have a 7.5-hour slog through the mire of human inertia. So for a moment, let's compare the two. Let's say, for all intents and purposes, that both Satan Tango and The Godfather are films of the exact same level of quality. What do you think would be the major differentiation in recommending one over the other? They're both long films, but you could watch both Godfathers before you'd even finish Satan Tango. Perhaps it's the fact that one is more relevant to the zeitgeist of popular culture. But why would that be? If we're being honest, what inhibits Satan Tango and films of its kind from public discourse is that they're perceived as boring. They're unentertaining. We've decided as a society that introspection and deep thinking are not exactly the proper ways to have a bit of fun. Fun being the most important factor of our lives. And it's this reason that someone who really wants to watch a movie will not look twice at Robert Bresson. This is what I'm concerned with, the art to entertainment pipeline. This phenomenon that we need to make things more accessible in every single facet, and that anything that may challenge or put into question one's viewpoints, one's self, is a quirk of those weird introverted types. I would argue that most successful artists now don't follow the spirit of art. I'd put a large portion of them into a category where they're playing dress up and are entertainers in the guise of artists. They're not making stuff that's introspective. They want to dazzle you with colours and have your attention on them. They want to show up in the most ludicrous outfit. They want to be all style, no substance. They are the centre, while their art takes a backseat. Why? Because that's easier. That's the more palatable approach. Entertainment has become so ubiquitous and so sophisticated that it's inseparable from distraction and inseparable from addiction. The basic assumption is that entertainment is anti-art and art is anti-entertainment. I suppose when most of us think about entertainment, it's associated with mindlessness. I don't necessarily mean that in a negative way, but if art is its adverse, the pastime more associated with introspection and meditation, then service seems to be the cornerstone of entertainment. If, let's say, I want to engage with a Dostoevsky, it's a rather mammoth task, and it's not something I can engage with passively. Go read Crime and Punishment. It's not a piece that when stripped away, you're left with a story. What you're instead left with is a challenge of morality. You have to place yourself in the shoes of Raskolnikov, and then you're alongside a character that truly develops slowly. And it's through the act of the character's internal world being overheard by himself that his own truth is doubted and questioned and reshuffled, and as such, so is our own. Does that sound fun? Well, maybe it should. Do you know the issue with this? In finding what differentiates art and entertainment, it's that I'm battling against mankind's innate desire to be placid, to be comfortable, and everything that I want requires resistance and being a guardian of one's own integrity. Not exactly a day in the park, I know. But if I could simplify the largest obstacle of all this, it's that literacy in the fundamental understanding of quality has been all but extinguished. You can hand people an absolute godsend in the arts, but when placed next to something popular, they cannot distinguish between the two. They don't know which one is the greater aesthetic achievement. More often than not, the prescribed demarcations of quality are popularity and mainstream recognition. It's why stuff that isn't that good can operate alongside truly spectacular or transgressive works in a more successful regard. Like, let's begin with the most benign example. Let's use a medium in which entertainment is clearly at the forefront, video games. So, Alan Wake is a series applauded for its ingenuity and writing, and it's viewed as such because its concept is transgressive. The work is half fiction, half self-aware, as the diegetic world the protagonist inhabits is being created as he writes it. Sure, a novel idea. Its execution, however, is dreadful. And this is the same medium in which a Silent Hill 2 exists. And yet people are going to tell me that this is good writing. Why? Because it has the palest reference imaginable to David Lynch, and therefore it's sophisticated. What, do you see that and think, haha, I wonder if anyone else got that reference? The thing is, in the arts, concept is enough. It's why so much contemporary art is categorized as conceptual, because it's not the process that translates across to the feeling, it's the explanation of how it transgresses norms. Go to any modern museum and find work that, without reading the densest paragraph explaining it plastered on the adjacent wall, that the work translated itself to you. Jean Dielmont is not just good because of the concept, it's because what it's saying works in tandem with the process, so that experiencing it, both are made vividly aware in the spectator. And this is the dichotomy of art enjoyment. Our approach to art is becoming exclusively something that we intellectualize, and that's the determiner of what makes it good. The high concepts, the meta-awareness. And everything that doesn't have this approach, well, the parameters for that success is how good it was in distracting us. One's approached as art, the other's approached as entertainment. I'm sure that you can think of a large proportion of artists where their success is determined by a process analogous to being some kind of entertainer. It's not that their work is having a large impact, it's that they themselves are distracting us from anyone's work. And I don't want this to become a thing where we're just shitting on contemporary art because contemporary equals bad. If anything, I'm starting off with this because I actually believe that this segment of society has a better basic understanding of art. I just feel as though they're being duped to accepting certain approaches to it under the veneer of transgression. Because the alternative aspect of how people approach art, or as they would call it, media literacy, is just fucking terrible.
And look at just, oh my god, like the way the artist drew this. It's like they didn't even care. It's not even a straight line. It's so bad, alright? Like, they didn't even put any passion in it.
The Oscar-winning movie for Best Picture, Moonlight, struggled to get beyond 7.5 on IMDb. Yeah, but it's about a gay black boy and the lead actor is Muslim. That's 3 gold medals in the Oppression Olympics. Quick, give it an Oscar.
Above us, only sky.
This is a Quentin Tarantino movie, is it not?
Has there ever been a more accurate reference? I think not. Art literacy, I find, is totally comparable to overall literacy and symbolic comprehension. You cannot read the culture nor the world around you if you can't understand the foundational text that the culture has been built upon. And I'm talking all aspects of culture here. This could be simplified as reference. And it must be said that because people don't possess enough, it's evident that a large portion of people are not equipped at all to read the world around them. And do you know what the average response is when you're incapable of doing something over and over again? Give up. I can't be bothered figuring out this Divine Comedy. I haven't even had a single laugh from it. Put Friends on. I want to turn off my brain. We are all tired. And this is the common excuse for why we want to turn our brains off. We want less awareness of the world around us constantly trying to fuck us over. But this is precisely why we can't turn it off. Because we should be giving our precious time to something greater. There is a need for distraction. However, that resistant side, which would make things so much easier to switch off, is saying we don't even have the time to rest. We have to do better. We are in a state where we want to be entertained all the time, and we're handed these surrogate forms of entertainment that are just distractions. The average human being is convincing themselves to be ignorant of the abundance of beauty that's around them, to actively pick friends over Decalogue. Ultimately, the layman will measure art through its utility to society. If a story, any story exists, society typically wants to know, well, what's the point of it existing? Which is why we're so quick to relate our own lives and our own world into the framework that an art piece sets up for us. This piece is clearly a comparison to the world I inhabit, and therefore the art is useful. And though I'm mocking this approach, even to reach this point, art is still something that we reflect upon. It becomes a solitary activity. Art communes with our internal world. It becomes introspective. It's a form of active engagement. The higher that level of participation on the part of the reader or the viewer, the more sophisticated it's perceived, the higher art it actually is. Whereas the notion that there requires no input on behalf of the audience in order to receive some kind of pleasure is a much more indulgent venture. One is clearly more traditionally entertaining, and if one requires as little introspection as possible to receive the maximum output of pleasure, then that would be thought of as entertainment. And so, with this in mind, ask yourself, are most of the things that I engage with something that I'm actively participating in, that's challenging me as much as I am it? Or am I meagerly accepting to be pleasured? Is the art industry as a whole being used as a platform for humanity's greatest achievements, or do you think it's likelier that it's a home for the loudest, most colourful distractions, where in fact nothing is challenged? Stability is kept through the mindless entertainment machine that is Hollywood. You know, it's fascinating how these mainstream know-nothings, all of a sudden when the company men get a hold of them, are transformed into visionary artists. They become this voice of a generation. It's weird because like a couple of years ago, I thought we all accepted they were shite and only an industry plant could have such a turnaround. You know, naive me, I thought these people were entertainers that the industry picked, rebranded as artists, pumped money into making their image ubiquitous, and then bought advertising and review spaces for them to homogenize culture and pacify the public into all thinking the same thing so we're able to consume more because there's stability in our entertainment industry. Great, now we can all like the same things and these artists are as good as the artists that came before. These singers and these actors and these writers are clowns that happen to have fantastic PR. And where in the art space there was once room for a Captain Beefheart and a Stanley Kubrick and a Giacomo Manzo, they want to tell me that these people I can't even name in principle are of the same ilk. Maybe they are better entertainers, but that's not what I'm interested in. You know, the film Seed of the Sacred Fig is going to be at this year's Academy Awards, nestled away somewhere inside Best Foreign Film. The director has currently been exiled from his country for making this work and has been sentenced to prison as well as to receive a public whipping. But we don't want to see that in the art world, not nowadays. We can protest, but it has to be a palatable protest, a democratic protest that everyone can understand and recognise, but, you know, we don't want to leave anyone out. And then we can cut to Glenn Close shaking her bum bum, and all will be forgiven. I struggle to engage with anything that requires that I dull my faculties, especially when stood on a soapbox that it's something more than that. And I don't think we should attribute the mere tolerance of vibes to good art. I don't think you can watch Persona with your brain turned off. And if you do, you'll watch something, but I don't think it'll be Persona. I was thinking about this idea over and over, and yet I haven't been able to reach a conclusion. There isn't necessarily a distinguishing factor between art and entertainment, because every piece I've mentioned thus far is art. So then, what? Everything I've mentioned is art. It's still all about something. is there anything that's about nothing? Could anything be about nothing? Well, you think about this, and the mental exercise is always the same. A Town Called Panic isn't about nothing. It's for the purposes of entertainment, yeah, but that still doesn't exclude it from art. I suppose entertainment is often linked with entertainers, and other forms of entertainment you wouldn't regard as art, like theme parks. We call Michael Jackson one of the greatest entertainers of all time, but we wouldn't call Baryshnikov one of the great entertainers. He's more exclusively an artist. But Michael Jackson's an artist too, a great artist. He's just more of an entertainer, but not like a comedian. But by these standards, comedy is not art in and of itself unless you're speaking about transgression or mastery of the form. So Buster Keaton would be considered more of an artist, and the Marx Brothers, they're more entertainment because they have less transgression. Although Monty Python has more artistry due to the same transgressions, but they wouldn't be as transgressive to the form as an Andy Kaufman, whose transgressions is a complete dismantling of the form, which is a more artistic perspective. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's always the same thing. Us artistic types and autistic types, we're so internal that we create this loop within art discourse. And this is why everyone hates art. This is why the perception of the arts is now lower than it's ever been. Because everything is approached in such a whimsical and immaterial lens that we can't even define what it is that we do. We say, well, if someone makes something, it comes from within, and so it must be art. No one makes something about nothing. It's like... The thing is, like... most stuff that's made is about nothing, really. Probably half the shit that you clicked on before you got here was about nothing. So what's the point of this? Why the fuck would this video of all videos stand out? Where are we even going with this? You have no idea how important it is to me that people are able to be the best version of themselves and not just accept things. It's one of the reasons why I'm exploring ideas in a way that have pockets that are obviously contradictory. Like, I could just say, for instance, yeah, do you know what? We should be a little lighter, not take things too seriously when talking about art. If people want to do this, by all means, art is subjective. Wrong. Art is not subjective. In fact, the overwhelming majority of art is formalist, or is some form of science. Go and tell the cinematographer and the lens manufacturer that there's no science in their work. Tell me that the work of Da Vinci came around, it was just because he felt right. Of course, perfect portrayals of human anatomy tied to composition at a mathematical level. It was just fucking guesswork. We have entertainers that are telling their sound engineers after playing 2 chords, go put some flavor, go put some sauce, go sprinkle some magic dust on it. Mate, that magic dust is mixing and mastering another 104 tracks on this fucking file. A film director says, we just need to feel a certain mood on set. The lighting guys need a color temperature. What's the number? But that's how we treat art. Like, it's so ephemeral, it can be anything. And that's the problem about discourse. Because even a video as basic as this, entertainment or art, look at where I am now. How many videos do you know that start on a basic premise that we can have a roundabout discussion with that are 12 hours long about fuck all? Everyone, especially in the arts, wants to waste your time. Any kind of discourse in the humanities is an Ouroboros of itself, because we treat it like there's no formalism whatsoever, and so we end up at the most useless conclusion in the world, which is anything is art. Like, I like Duchamp, but what he did for the arts, it's never recovered from. And because mankind wants to take the easiest, most self-gratifying route, then yeah, as long as I want to create something artistic, then of course it's art. That's its ultimate definition. We're too nice, it's... right, no, do you know what? Honestly, do you know what?